The Siege of Sarajevo, 1992 to 1996. The Siege of Sarajevo is one of the most tragic and harrowing episodes in the history of modern Europe. It was a conflict that unfolded at the end of the 20th century, yet it brought back the kind of suffering and destruction that many had hoped was left behind with the world wars. Over the course of nearly 4 years, from April 1992 to February 1996, the people of Sarajevo endured the longest siege of a capital city in the history of modern warfare. The story of Sarajevo during these dark years is one of resilience, humanity, and the enduring will to survive amid relentless brutality. Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, was a city of great cultural and ethnic diversity. It had a long history of coexistence among its various ethnic groups: Bosniaks, Serbs, Croats, and others. The city was known for its vibrant cultural life, its beautiful architecture that blended Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, and Yugoslav influences, and its role as a symbol of multi-ethnic harmony in the Balkans. However, by the early 1990s, the political situation in the former Yugoslavia was rapidly deteriorating. The country was breaking apart, and nationalist tensions were on the rise. Bosnia and Herzegovina declared independence in March 1992, a move that was met with fierce opposition from Bosnian Serb leaders who were determined to create a Serb-dominated state. Sarajevo, as the capital, was seen as a critical prize, both symbolically and strategically. On April 5, 1992, the Siege of Sarajevo began. Bosnian Serb forces, led by General Ratko Mladic and supported by the Yugoslav People's Army, encircled the city. They set up heavy artillery positions in the hills surrounding Sarajevo and began a relentless bombardment that would continue for nearly 4 years. The objective was clear: to break the will of the city's defenders and force Sarajevo to surrender. For the people of Sarajevo, life under siege was a daily struggle for survival. The city was cut off from the outside world, with no access to food, medicine, or other essential supplies. The Serb forces controlled the roads leading in and out of the city, and they used snipers and artillery to terrorize the civilian population. Sarajevo's residents lived in constant fear of sniper fire. The streets became deadly zones where even a simple trip to get water or buy bread could be fatal. The term Sniper Alley became infamous, referring to the main boulevard where Serb snipers would target anyone who dared to cross. Despite the dangers, people had no choice but to move around the city, risking their lives every day. The bombardment of Sarajevo was relentless. Shells rained down on the city day and night, destroying homes, schools, hospitals, and cultural landmarks. The National Library of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a treasure trove of the country's cultural heritage, was set ablaze by shelling in August 1992, leading to the loss of countless irreplaceable manuscripts and books. The historic Sarajevo City Hall, which housed the library, burned for days, symbolizing the cultural devastation inflicted upon the city. Despite the constant threat of death, the people of Sarajevo refused to give up. They found ways to survive, improvising and adapting to the harsh conditions. Gardens were planted in parks and on balconies to grow vegetables. Makeshift markets sprang up where goods were traded for other necessities. The city's residents dug wells to find water and collected rainwater whenever they could. Electricity was sporadic, and many people relied on candles and oil lamps for light. Winters were especially brutal, with no heating and temperatures often dropping below freezing. People tore apart their own furniture and scavenged wood from bombed-out buildings to keep warm. The lack of medical supplies was another critical issue. Doctors worked in makeshift hospitals, often performing surgeries without anesthesia or proper equipment. Amid the terror and deprivation, the human spirit remained unbroken. Sarajevo's citizens found ways to maintain their dignity and humanity, even as the world around them crumbled. The city's cultural life continued in defiance of the siege. Musicians performed in basements and bomb shelters, and theater groups staged plays, offering brief moments of respite from the horrors of war. One of the most powerful symbols of this resilience was the Sarajevo Film Festival, which was founded in 1995 during the siege. The festival was a bold statement of defiance, an assertion that even in the face of such suffering, art and culture could not be extinguished. The festival was held in a makeshift cinema, and despite the constant danger, it attracted filmmakers and audiences who were determined to show that Sarajevo's spirit would not be crushed. The siege also brought out acts of extraordinary courage and humanity. Volunteers risked their lives to bring food and medicine to those in need. Journalists and photographers documented the horror of the siege, bringing the world's attention to the suffering in Sarajevo. Many of these brave individuals paid the ultimate price for their dedication. One of the most poignant stories from the siege is that of Vedran Smailovic, a cellist with the Sarajevo Philharmonic Orchestra. In the wake of a deadly mortar attack that killed 22 people waiting in line for bread, Smailovic took his cello to the site of the massacre and played Albinoni's Adagio in G minor for 22 consecutive days, one for each victim. His music echoed through the ruins, a powerful act of mourning and resistance that touched the hearts of people around the world. The international response to the siege of Sarajevo was slow and inadequate. Despite the horrific images and stories coming out of the city, the world's powers were reluctant to intervene in what was seen as a complex and intractable conflict. The United Nations established a presence in Sarajevo, but its peacekeepers were often powerless to stop the violence. Humanitarian aid convoys were frequently delayed or blocked by the besieging forces. In 1993, the United Nations declared Sarajevo a safe area, but this designation did little to protect the city's inhabitants. The siege continued, and the shelling and sniper attacks showed no sign of abating. The international community's inaction became a source of frustration and despair for the people of Sarajevo, who felt abandoned by the world. It wasn't until 1995, after the massacre at Srebrenica and the shelling of the Sarajevo marketplace that killed 43 people, that the international community finally took decisive action. NATO launched a series of airstrikes against Bosnian Serb positions, which, combined with a ground offensive by Bosnian and Croat forces, eventually forced the Serbs to the negotiating table. The siege of Sarajevo was officially lifted on February 29, 1996, after the signing of the Dayton Peace Agreement in December 1995. The city was in ruins, and the human cost of the siege was staggering. Over 11,000 people, including more than 1,500 children, had been killed. Tens of thousands more were wounded or maimed, and the psychological scars of the siege would last a lifetime. The end of the siege did not bring an immediate return to normalcy for Sarajevo. The city was left with massive destruction, and rebuilding it would take years. The physical scars were matched by deep emotional and psychological wounds. Families mourned the loss of loved ones, and survivors struggled with the trauma of what they had endured. Sarajevo's population had been decimated, and the city's once celebrated diversity was a shadow of its former self. Many residents had fled during the war, and those who remained had to navigate the difficult process of reconciliation and healing in a deeply divided society. Despite the immense challenges, Sarajevo began the long road to recovery. The city's residents, who had shown such remarkable resilience during the siege, now turned their energy toward rebuilding their lives and their city. International aid flowed in, and slowly, the city's infrastructure was repaired. Schools reopened, businesses resumed, and cultural life began to flourish once more. The Sarajevo Film Festival, born out of the ashes of the siege, grew to become one of the most important cultural events in the region, symbolizing the city's revival. The festival, along with other cultural institutions, played a crucial role in healing the wounds of war and restoring Sarajevo's identity as a center of art and culture. Today, Sarajevo stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The scars of the siege are still visible in the bullet-riddled buildings and the memories of those who lived through it. But the city has moved forward, rebuilding and reclaiming its place as a symbol of hope and endurance. The siege of Sarajevo serves as a powerful reminder of the horrors of war and the suffering it inflicts on innocent people. It also stands as a lesson in the importance of international intervention in the face of atrocities and the need for the world to act decisively to prevent such tragedies from occurring. The story of Sarajevo is not just a story of war. It is a story of survival, of the strength of community, and of the unbreakable will to live, even in the darkest of times. It is a story that continues to resonate, reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring hope for peace in a world too often torn apart by conflict.